Go ahead.
Hey guys, good to see you. I got my co-pilot here. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CRS, the Central Repair Shop of the Sanitation Department here in Woodside. It's also the Queens 4 Garage. I want to thank everyone for being here. We have a lot to update you on. I have a few acknowledgments I'd like to make at the beginning. And the first and the most important acknowledgment is to thank the men and women of the Sanitation Department who are doing an extraordinary job in the midst of this crisis. I have to tell you that the folks standing behind me are really heroes. They are doing amazing work this last 24 hours, but I can also tell you they're servicing their vehicle as we speak. I can also tell you, I talked about it around the time of Sandy, but I want to repeat it again publicly. In the days and weeks after Sandy, wherever I went all over the city, people who were affected by Sandy talked about all of the first responders that helped them, but there was a special love and appreciation they felt for the sanitation workers who did such an extraordinary job helping people get their lives back to normal. So I just want to thank you, every one of you, for what you're doing to help this city. I want to thank Commissioner Doherty for his extraordinary leadership. It would have been nice to have talked about how to handle a snowstorm in like an abstract exercise, but we didn't get to do that. We got the real thing, and I want to thank you, Commissioner, for your great leadership and teamwork with all the other agencies. I want to thank my good friend Harry Nespoli of Local 831, representing all the sanitation workers of this city. I want to thank him for his friendship and leadership. I want to thank Councilmember Liz Crowley. Now, this is your district, yes? Yes, right on the border. Okay, right on the border with Councilmember Van Bramer. They're two good friends, worked with for many years. I want to thank them for their leadership and for being here today as we update the people of the city. Council members, and I can say this from personal experience, council members are one of the frontline leaders, or council members are out there in our communities informing people of what's going on. I can tell you during any crisis like this, people call their local council office looking for help, looking for direction. So I want to thank you for the leadership that you're showing. All right, well, we can safely say we've had our first significant snowfall of the new year. It appears at this moment that the storm has passed. It's left us just a little short of 10 inches of snow. But obviously, a lot of dislocation has been caused, and we're doing a lot to make sure that we are responding as we speak. Even though the snow has ended, the travel conditions are obviously still very, very difficult. So I want to pick up where we were yesterday. I want to say that the most important thing is that people should not be on the roads today if there's any way they can help it. I want to emphasize that for several reasons. Before I just talk about the safety reason, I want to reference back these good people who are working so hard to clear the roads and keep things safe. I also had the honor last night of stopping by my home garage at BK6 Garage in my neighborhood in Brooklyn. And you have to realize how hard these guys are working. And we can help them by getting out of their way so they can clear the streets. So I want to say to my fellow New Yorkers, if you want safe, clear streets, stay home and let these good folks at Sanitation do their job to clear the streets. Obviously, the other reason to stay home is for safety. It's very slick out there. It's hard to drive out there. There's the wind, the ice, there's a lot of blowing snow still, so that's going to affect visibility. If you do not need to travel today, please stay home. I'm going to say it again. If you do not need to travel today, please stay home. If you do have to travel, take mass transit. Yes, there will be some delays, but it will be safe, and it will help us to get the city 100% back in full running order. So we want people to stay off the streets. But in the meantime, I have to tell you the extraordinary work of the Sanitation Department. I am so appreciative to all the members of New York's Strongest for what they've been doing. It's working. You can see as you go out there the extraordinary impact they've had already. Members of the Sanitation Department are now continuing to work 12-hour shifts, and it's tough work, let me assure you. And they will continue with 12-hour shifts until snow removal is complete. They have a pretty daunting task, 6,200 miles of roadways to cover. But they're doing a great job of it. As of 4 a.m., and I am an expert at the conditions as of 4 a.m. because we had a 4 a.m. conference call to discuss the school situation. So I was one of the most informed people in New York City at 4 a.m. this morning. As of 4 a.m., there are nearly 2,500 sanitation, DOT, DEP, and parks plows out on our streets. I want to thank all those agencies for their cooperation, making their equipment available under the leadership of the Sanitation Department. Again, the snow began to taper off around 8 a.m., but there will be the problem of blowing snow. The wind conditions are substantial. We're going to definitely see some serious gusts, so there will be blowing snow throughout the day. And that blowing snow, of course, makes the work of sanitation and the other agencies harder because they move snow and then in some cases it blows right back onto the street, so they have to keep going over it again and again. But that being said, the statistics of what they've done so far are entirely impressive, and every New Yorker should be grateful when you hear this. 100% of primary roads have been plowed. 92% of secondary roads, 93% of tertiary roads. So that's an extraordinary level of performance under tough conditions. Sanitation Department has also brought in private contractors, particularly a focus on the tertiary roads. As for the normal role that sanitation plays, there will not be trash or recycling pickups until snow clearing efforts are complete. Commissioner Doherty is focused on trying to get that complete as quickly as possible so he can go back and get the team back to trash and recycling pickups, but that will wait until we know this job is done. Again, as we talked about yesterday, alternate side parking regulations are suspended today. Suspended today. There's a few parts of the city that have Saturday alternate side. They will be suspended as well. So alternate side parking suspended today, and where it exists will be suspended tomorrow. But I caution that parking meters remain in effect. Sometime in the centuries from now, a new civilization will look back and they'll still find our parking meters are in effect. So in all situations, parking meters remain in effect. Now, the crews that are doing this work, that are working so hard, again, we need to get out of their way. We need to let them do their work. And we can help them to do their work, one, by staying off the roads, but two, to my fellow homeowners. And I was shoveling this morning, and I would say to all other homeowners, particularly in the outer boroughs, you need to help us. If you have a hydrant in front of your house, please shovel it out. Do that public service and shovel out the hydrant in front of your house. I know that sanitation's done a great job bringing in additional laborers to focus on crosswalks, to focus on bus stops, and we need as much help as we can from residents to do their part of the equation. Commissioner Doherty has reminded me of this important fact. Do not shovel snow into the street. He's my conscience. And again, as a homeowner who shovels my walk, I think that's a very important admonishment. So we all have to remember, put the snow on the sidewalk, not into the street. If anyone was watching me this morning, I had an unusual situation because the area in front of my house has been blocked off, so it's not a place where people park. So I made a little exception there. Now, we have both NYPD and private tow trucks mobilize for removing stalled vehicles from the streets. So we're hoping the best way to avoid stalled vehicles is for people to not go out and drive. But where we have stalled vehicles, there's a very substantial supply of both NYPD and private tow trucks to remove those vehicles. The best thing that people can do, of course, is to stay safe, to stay warm, and stay indoors. I don't want people to forget just how cold it is. I'm going to talk about it in a moment, but this is deceptively cold out there, and it's going to get colder when the sun goes down. So anyone who can stay indoors, that's smart in terms of your own health and well-being. If you want to know how things are going with our efforts to clear the streets, you can check the Plow NYC function at nyc.gov. It's extraordinary. You get to see exactly where the snow plows are working in your neighborhood at that moment. If you have snow-related issues, problems, inquiries, call 911. Again, anything that is not an emergency, call 311. Someone catch me here. Call 311. Let me retake that one. If you have snow problems, issues, inquiries, call 311. 311. Only in an emergency, call 911. Constantly have to emphasize this. Anything that is not an emergency goes to 311. If you see an emergency situation, if you're experiencing an emergency yourself or you see someone in dire distress, that's when you call 911. Now, emergency response times, of course, have been affected by these conditions. It's a small delay, about a minute additional response time delay because of the snow and the traffic conditions. But I know that all of our emergency services are working hard to reduce that delay. Ambulances have been outfitted with chains or cables for traction. So they're making their calls, they're getting through, but there is a slight delay. Talk about travel conditions and the situation with our city agencies. Of course, travel is very difficult, but city workers have been reporting to their workplaces, and with very few exceptions, city offices are open and functioning. Some things that are shut down or altered today: all City of University of New York classes are canceled today. All CUNY classes canceled. New York Public Library and Brooklyn Public Library branches will open at noon, and they will close at their regular times. Queens libraries are open on their regular schedules. Now, early this morning, and I emphasize the word early, at 4 a.m., we made the decision to close the public schools. There was a very deliberative conversation of a number of agencies participating, but we came to the conclusion that with these really extraordinarily cold temperatures and with the obvious delays that would happen in mass transit and in school buses, we didn't want our children exposed to a situation that would be very windy, icy, and very, very cold. So we made the decision that this was the kind of condition that warranted the closing of the schools. All after-school and public school PSAL after-school programs and events will be canceled today. Oh yes, here in my notes, an important fact I just want to clarify, that I did some of my own shoveling, as I mentioned, but after that, someone who did not go to school today picked up the shovel and got to work doing his share. So Dante is not an early riser, but he has now contributed to the clearing of the sidewalks of our city, Commissioner. Dante did the from the door to the sidewalk, and then he's doing more on the sidewalk as it accumulates. And he will be in charge from this point on. I think I led by example, and now it's time for the young generation to pick up the challenge. As we mentioned before, mass transit is obviously the best way to get around. Some updates: the Staten Island Ferry has been operating on a modified rush hour schedule. The East River Ferry is running. The Rockaway Ferry is not running. Not surprisingly, buses are delayed, but they are still moving. Subways and commuter trains are running, but there have been changes to service. If you want updates on our trains and buses, the best course of action is to check out www.mta.info. www.mta.info before you head out. I want to talk about the cold outside. It is deceptively cold. It is the coldest it's been all year, and people, I think, sometimes think it doesn't feel so bad, but if you stay out there too long, it will feel bad, and it will be dangerous, particularly to folks who are vulnerable, the folks who have medical challenges, to young children. So I don't want anyone to underestimate just how bitterly cold it is, and it's going to get a lot colder in a few hours. The high temperature today will be 18 degrees. And obviously with wind chill, it could be a lot less depending on where you are. So a high of 18 degrees. But by this evening, the temperatures will go down to 0 degrees, and of course, with wind chill, it will be worse. It will be in the negatives. So that is one of the reasons why our Department of Homeless Services is again out in full force. And I ask the people of New York City, if you see a homeless person in distress, if you see someone who needs help, please call 311. And an outreach team will go out immediately to help that individual. If your building is not receiving the heat it deserves, if you're not warm, call your building management. If that is not working, call 311 right away. We do not want people to go without heat. We don't want them improvising, as I talked about yesterday. Sometimes people try and improvise a solution when they don't have heat, and that can be very dangerous and create a threat of fire. So please, if you're not getting the heat you need, call your building owner or call 311. So our focus today, of course, is on the health and safety of all New Yorkers. We want everyone to watch out for each other. Senior centers are closed today. All senior centers are closed. So I ask all New Yorkers to keep an eye out for their fellow New Yorkers who happen to be seniors. If someone needs a little help, they need some food, they need some help with anything in their day-to-day life, please try to be there for them. And as you're walking around today, if you go outside, be very careful when you're walking. It's very slippery. Try to limit the amount of time you're out there, but when you're out there, please walk very carefully. One other point about our parks, and I have a family where days like this, the first impulse of the younger generation is to go find a sled and go sledding. Well, I understand that, but I want to note it's very, very cold. It's unusually cold. We are urging our young people and our parents to remember the best option today is stay close to home. Best option is to not be outside too long. It is very, very cold in our parks right now. So staying out there too long is dangerous. We're going to have a lot of snow this winter. There'll be other opportunities to get out there and have fun, but hopefully in temperatures that aren't quite this brutal. So I'd like to urge caution. Everyone here that you see behind me is working very hard today to keep the city safe. We owe them a debt of gratitude. We admire their professionalism. We will continue to give you updates as we get new information. And I'm going to say a few more things, and then we're going to take questions just on the topic of the storm. We have a lot we need to cover. We're going to just focus on the storm. If you have other topics, we'll get to that at the next opportunity. Again, final point before I offer just a little Spanish. If you have questions, if you have issues, if you have needs that are not emergency needs, call 311 or go to nyc.gov. If there is a true emergency, if someone's life is in danger, then use 911. En español, esta ha sido y sigue siendo una tormenta peligrosa. Va a hacer mucho frío hoy y los neoyorquinos debemos tener sumo cuidado a salir a la calle. Lo mejor que la gente puede hacer es mantenerse fuera de las vías para que podamos limpiarlas tan pronto como sea posible y verificar a las personas mayores y vecinos vulnerables que podrían necesitar ayuda esta mañana. With that, we welcome your questions. Dave.
This may just be anecdotal, but for example, traveling from the west side of Manhattan here in Woodside, at 44th and 2nd Avenue, the streets were not in great shape and the buses were having some trouble. They were sliding back down. When we got to Queens, great. I mean, it looked great here in the streets. So my question is, was there a decision, because of in the past it seemed that Manhattan was favored, that the inverse is happening now, that we see more trouble in Manhattan and the outer boroughs are in great shape?
You have a rich imagination. No, we are working in all 5 boroughs equally. I believe that that is not only a philosophical idea that I believe in strongly, it's also the fundamental belief of this department to help each and every neighborhood equally. And there's going to be some areas that just because of local conditions are harder to handle. We had different levels of snowfall around the city. We've had different wind conditions around the city, so there are going to be natural variations. But I can safely say, having seen the Sanitation Department Command Center, they're constantly updating, constantly making adjustments to covered areas in need. And those numbers I gave earlier about the amount of initial coverage are extraordinary. And that obviously makes clear that all 5 boroughs are being treated very completely. So if there are particular problem points, we want to know about them, and we want to get right to work on them. Yeah. Just louder, please.
The storm is not over yet, but this is your first big utility crisis since becoming mayor. So describe for me how you feel about how your administration has handled it thus far.
Well, the first thing I feel is I'm very proud of the people who work for this city. And we have the finest workforce anywhere in the country, and they're showing it right now. They have jumped to action, and the energy and professionalism is extraordinary. So I'm proud to be a New Yorker today, and I'm proud of the people who work for the city of New York. In terms of the coordination levels, look, everyone here knows it's sometimes hard for different agencies to get on the same page. But I have to tell you, I've been so impressed. From the moment we gathered everyone at the Office of Emergency Management, there's a tremendous devotion to coordination here. The fact that other agencies put their plows at the disposal of the Sanitation Department and recognize the leadership of the Sanitation Department in this situation. It's a great vignette to show the kind of cooperation we're experiencing. So I feel great about the response. We are vigilant. We are not out of this yet. It's not over. As a great man said, it ain't over till it's over. But I like what I see in terms of the rigor and the intensity of the city response. Yes.
If you could give a grade to your team today, what grade would you give them?
Based on the information I have right now, I give everyone an A for extraordinary effort and extraordinary effectiveness. But again, that's at this hour, this day. I don't rest on any laurels. We got a lot more work to do. And it's going to be difficult out there. So, ask me my grade again in a few hours, because this is an hour-to-hour thing. We have to keep at it, and we're very focused on it.
Dante.
I give Dante a A for effort and a D for punctuality.
Also on your side, it seems like from what was going around the internet yesterday that he was kind of lobbying a little bit for their not to school today. Did he talk to you at all? What conversation did you have with him?
You know what George Washington said, that famous thing about he cannot tell a lie? So I cannot tell a lie. If Dante was not lobbying me, there'd be something wrong with him. Of course, he's 16. But unfortunately, the decision takes many more factors into account than Dante's opinions. So the fact is, this was a very tough decision. And I want to thank we had a lot of people on that 4 a.m. Conference call from a lot of agencies. And it's not something you do lightly. But the more we looked at the specific conditions, and the temperature, I think, was probably the single most important factor. And in the back and forth, when we thought about the fact that a lot of our young people, including very small children, might have to be waiting for long periods of time at a bus stop, for example, whether it's a public bus or a school bus, that was one of the tiebreakers from my point of view, the notion that at this kind of bitter cold, we did not want small children just out there exposed. And when we factored everything together, it became pretty clear to everyone that it was the right thing to do.
Follow up on that. A lot of people who are hurt most when there's
Louder?
A lot of the people who are most affected when there's no school are people, low-income workers who are not on salaries. So does that play a role in your decision as well?
These decisions, by definition, you have to think about everything. But I think the safety of our children is the single most important factor here. So when I heard all the facts, it was clear to me there were some particular challenges today. Maybe if we had warmer temperatures and different dynamics, the sheer amount of inches of snow wouldn't have been enough to stop us. But when you added the cold, the bitter, bitter cold, the wind, the icy conditions, I think it was the right thing to do. Sal? All I know is that the average at this moment is a 1-minute delay per run. At this moment, from everything I've heard, everything has functioned well, and despite the delay, everyone has been served well. Marcia? Well, I am not a native Spanish speaker, so I'm going to say that native Spanish speakers can give those grades. I have a lot of work to do on my Spanish. It was much stronger many years ago, so I'm going to be doing a lot of work over time, but I'm trying my best. I think our fellow New Yorkers who are Spanish speakers do appreciate when any of us try to do our best to communicate and give them important information in their native language. I don't think anyone has the illusion I'm doing it as well as I should, but I'm trying to at least get something out there to be helpful to people. Grace. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there's a big difference. Gracie Mansion is the people's house, and obviously there are people who work there, and they do a great job there, and that's their job to keep the place, and I respect that. My house on 11th Street is my house. It's my responsibility to keep that walk clear. So, and it will continue to be, because I will continue to own that house. So sometimes it'll be me, sometimes it might be someone else, but I actually have to make sure that sidewalk is clear whenever the snow hits. Grace.
You mentioned the 4 a.m. conference call. Did you get any sleep last night before that? Tell us about the rest of your day.
Oh, I had a great night. It's not the most sleep-filled night. I know a lot of people here did not get a lot of sleep last night, so I'm in solidarity with these hardworking men and women. But I will say I have never done a 4 a.m. conference call in my life. I've been on a lot of conference calls, but not a 4 a.m. conference call. It was amazing how lucid everyone was, but I did note that people tended to keep their statements shorter than usual. But no, I don't think any of us got a lot of sleep, but I think we all know we're all in this together.
About how many times each road gets plowed?
Louder?
Can you tell us how many times each road gets
Let me let the
plowed?
expert handle that.
It really varies depending on the situation out there. Sometimes you can go through a street, plow it once, and you're done with it. Other times you may have to go through 3 and 4 times. Last night was a storm where we had to go repeatedly on many streets, particularly the primary streets, the highway streets. The wind kept blowing the snow back in, so we didn't get into our secondary and tertiary as quick as we would like. Therefore, we had some streets out there this morning that we had to go into and complete the plowing operation. We'll continue to do that today.
Some secondary and tertiary roads that haven't been plowed, whereabouts are those?
Excuse me again?
Some roads that haven't been plowed yet?
Yeah, we said that in the beginning. There's some streets out there that haven't been plowed, and we're working on. I think the key when you look at how we responded, the city responded to this storm, is always, was the emergency vehicles able to get where they needed to get to? And we did that. Roads were passable. Yeah, was there some snow in them? Did somebody get stuck once in a while? Absolutely. Do we have some more plowing to do? Absolutely. But we were able to keep this city moving no matter what the situation was last night. And that was the key to it. Well, I think that's a good point, because I'm concerned that as the sun comes out today, you're starting to see more blacktop coming up. And as the day goes on, you'll see a lot more of that. But unless that road dries, and some roadways will dry today with the traffic and the breeze blowing on them, but it can be misleading because it'll also tighten up tonight. When that temperature drops down to 4 or 5 degrees, it's going to tighten up. So people can be misled being out there today and then go out tonight and say, oh, I'm going to go along at 50 or 60 miles an hour. So that's why the mayor has emphasized from the very beginning, please don't go out unless you have to. And I've always emphasized, if you have to go out, be a good driver. Think about what you're doing. And I must thank the public, because last night, thanks to the mayor and making all the announcements, we did have the roads to ourselves, and it made it a lot easier for these men and women behind me today.
I think we do owe a debt of gratitude to the people of New York City, because they did respond last night, and I want to amplify the commissioner's point. The people of this city heard the message. They largely stayed home. They let these hardworking men and women do their job. We need them to do that again tonight. Stay back so that people can continue this important work. And also, what the commissioner said is crucial. It will be icy out there tonight. It will be very difficult driving conditions. People need to stay home to the maximum extent possible. When you really must go out, try to see if there is a mass transit option that'll get you where you need to go. Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm going to do that one, then I owe these guys a turn. So we'll give them just a couple extras.
Mayor, I'm just wondering if there were any issues with the city bike stations that are out there that plows and stuff.
No.
This question is for the Commissioner. Sir, how would you rank this administration's snow response to the Uber administration's snow response?
3 days in.
I've been asked twice this morning by reporters on the radio or TV. Is it any different than this one? I've been working for mayors since Koch at different levels, and every mayor I've worked for, all they want is that snow to disappear and the people to be able to get out there as quickly as possible. This mayor is no different than any other mayor I've worked for when it comes to that. He wants the job done, and he wants the streets clear, and that's what we do. I manage the job. He just makes sure that I manage it right.
Amen. Well, this is my new communications director. He has a great penchant for the perfect statement. Yeah, first of all, exactly right. Second of all, guys, we're 3 days into this. So let's be clear. You know, when you want to compare apples and apples, let's do that. But right now, we're focused on solving this crisis. The clear reality here is we have an extraordinary workforce. That, again, I think Commissioner Doherty said some very important points there. We have an extraordinary workforce that's here regardless of who's mayor. We have some extraordinary leaders in the agencies, civil servants who are here regardless of who's mayor. And I think every mayor is concerned to protect the health and safety of our people. But I'm just thrilled that people have gotten into action so effectively, and I'm really particularly appreciative at the great level of coordination between the agencies. That's a credit to the agencies. It's also a credit to our first Deputy Mayor, Tony Shoras, who's been leading the effort. Yeah. You and then Rich. And then I think we're done, right? Okay, you and then Rich.
Why did you choose to speak to us from Queens today? Did it have anything to do with the snow in Queens taking out another New York mayor 40 years ago?
Wow. You have a fine sense of history. The answer is no. We are going to make the point in everything we do. I've said it in many different settings, and I said it on January 1st. All boroughs are created equal. I am a proud Brooklynite, and I was proud to be shoveling my sidewalk in front of my Brooklyn house. I am an outer borough homeowner. I think many, many people who are shoveling today are outer borough homeowners. So we're going to be focused on the outer boroughs because that's where the vast majority of the people live. But we're going to serve all 5 boroughs with energy and equality by definition. We're here because it's important. This is a central facility for the Sanitation Department, and it's a logical place because it's one of the crucial areas in this battle. And we wanted to be here to express our appreciation for what these guys are doing. Rich.
One question for the commissioner and one for you. The commissioner, how many snowstorms have you been through as a commissioner? Do you have any idea? The other one is, Mr. Mayor, how many layers are you wearing today?
Rich, I can't figure out how many. There's been a lot of them. I'm not going to worry about that. We just look forward to dressing the one we're in right now, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Did you have a second?
Just wondering how many layers you're wearing today.
Do you want me to go farther, Rich? I have an undershirt also. Okay. Yes, this is what I'm wearing now. When I went out to shovel, it was this plus a sweater. It was not that when you're shoveling is a fine form of exercise, let me just tell you. I didn't have to go to the gym today. So during the shoveling, no. Cold was not my challenge. My back was my challenge, but it worked out. Thank you very much, everyone. Get the word out. Thank you very much.